YouTube live stream. I'll start by introducing myself, as this is the first time I'm meeting the committee members. My name is Derek O'Shea, and I will be the clerk for the committee. It's a pleasure to meet everybody today, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet you in person someday soon. The first item of business we're going to go through is the election of officers, the chair and the vice chair. But before we do that, I just do want to do introduction, let everybody know we do have quorum for the meeting, and I have received regrets for the meeting from Councillor Holland. Everybody else is in attendance, I believe. I believe Zerman Khan will also be joining us. I don't think he is here quite yet. With that, we also have staff with us today. We have the city's Chief Administrative Officer, Lanny Hurdle. We have Mohammed Hassan, the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager. Vanessa Mensa, the Project Manager for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Initiatives. You have myself, the Committee Clerk, as well as Ian Sullivan, who is our Information Compliance Analyst and here today as the meeting host. And with that, we do not have any members of the public in attendance either. So I will ask if there's anybody who is interested in volunteering for the position of chair today. I'll also let you know that today it's a bit odd because the chairs are elected starting in December of every year. That means we'll elect a chair and vice chair for this meeting. And then when we meet again, it will be an election for the following year. So if anybody's interested in trying it out today, that is great. If not, Councillor Neal has volunteered to chair this meeting, and maybe everybody else can get a sense of what chairing is like. So I'll open it up if anybody is interested in volunteering. All right.
If I could just speak very quickly to that. I did speak to Mary Rita Holland, and she sends her regrets. She had a class at Queen's today, but she suggested a couple of people that who may wish to put their name forward. She also suggested that or said that she'd be quite happy to be vice chair to help out with anybody who's perhaps not chaired a lot of meetings. I'm quite happy to chair for today only, but if somebody else wants to put their name forward, that would be great.
I would love to help with vice chairing if that's possible.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, River. So perhaps we do this by two different votes. So I have right now, Councillor Neal has volunteered for this term or for this meeting to serve as chair. River has volunteered as vice chair. Is anybody else interested in the chair position for today?
I'm happy to try the chair position. I'll give it a go.
Okay, excellent.
I will withdraw from the, as I said before, I have this Pavlovian response of raising my hand when nobody else does at council. So I'm on far too many committees right now, but I'd be happy for the chair and the vice chair. And if they wish to continue in December, that would be great.
All right, excellent. So I have first, we'll do two separate votes. So first for the chair, Manuela has offered. So thank you very much, Manuela, for volunteering. If there's no other volunteers, that makes this easy. We don't have to have a runoff. So we do need a mover and a seconder and an official vote on this. So if somebody could move and second, just raise your hand like Councillor Neal. So I have Councillor Neal moving and Elsabe seconding. So I'll just write this down. And for the vote, I'll just get everybody to vote on screen with your hand. So all in favor, raise your hand, please. And I'm not seeing any opposed, so thank you very much for that. And for the vice chair, River has volunteered, so thank you to River. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for that. I have Sunita moving, and I have Vanessa seconding, thank you. And I will call the vote on that. All in favor, raise your hand, please. And I'm not seeing any opposed, so thank you very much. And with that, I will turn things over to Manuela as the chair. And Manuela, I can help guide you through the agenda. Any questions, feel free to ask.
Great, that sounds perfect. I appreciate that. I just need to pull up the agenda. All right, thank you everyone for your patience. This being my first time chairing a meeting. So in terms of the order of today, I believe the first thing to do, since we did, would be the election of officers. Is that correct?
The election of officers has been complete. That was what I ran there. So next step is to call the meeting to order.
Perfect. So I will be calling this meeting to order now. And have patience with me. Just looking to your guidance in order to call the meeting to order. Would that be a roll call of everyone here?
That is literally just what you have done. Call the meeting to order. That's all you need to do. And then next is approval of the agenda, which we do need mover, seconder, and a vote.
Perfect. So call for the mover first. Thank you. And seconder. Thank you, River and Sunita and Hall. And there was a third piece there, Derek.
It's just to see if anybody has any changes they'd like to make to the agenda. If not, we can just call a vote and do a show of hands vote like we did with the election of officers.
Okay, so everyone in favor of the agenda order, show of hands, please. Thank you. And next we have the confirmation of minutes.
And this process is very similar. If anybody has any changes they'd like to make to the minutes, if there were any errors or omissions, now is the time to bring them up. If there are none, we would just do a mover, seconder, and a vote again, Manuela.
Okay, perfect.
I think that one change I just had was that my name needed to be corrected on the minutes, and that's everything.
So sorry, just I only caught part of that, River. Is there a correction in the minutes you'd like to make?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, just the my name needs to be corrected in the minutes.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, and I will make that correction.
Thanks.
I actually have to second that one as well. Yeah, just you can look at it afterwards.
My apologies about that, Manuela. I think the problem was the original paperwork I was reading cut off the lower kerning, so my apologies for that.
Not a worry. Thank you. All right, so I guess first we need it's not a seconder, but the other one. Derek.
Mover.
The mover, okay. We'll have a mover first. Okay, thank you, Hall. And then a seconder. Thank you, Vanessa. And I believe that Derek, sorry, there's a third step again. I should just be writing this down. So
It's a vote, and this is the second last vote we have to do. So we're getting through it.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll do a vote. Everyone in favor, raise a hand. Thank you. And that means we can move along to item number 5, the disclosure of pecuniary interest. And Derek, I'll let you sort of guide me through this one.
Well, this is just a chance where if people have a pecuniary interest on anything on the agenda, this is their chance to declare it. Hopefully you will all recall, I believe you received a presentation on this topic from our city solicitor. My guess is there are none, and I'm not seeing any hands, Manuela, so we can move on to the next item.
Great, thank you. So next is the delegations. Are the delegations?
There are none, so you can move on to the next item.
Perfect, thank you. Briefings.
Again, there are none.
Okay, perfect. Then we have business. And first on that is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office 2021 to 2022 work plan.
So the process for this is staff will speak to it. I believe Lanny has raised her hand. So staff will speak to the report. There'll be an opportunity for questions from the committee, and then there will be a vote on the recommendation. So Manuela, you can give the floor over to Lanny.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Derek. Lanny, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to actually virtually meet all of you that are members of the committee. So I will actually do a bit of an introduction and pass it over to Mr. Mohammed Ashon, who has been working more closely on the details of the plan. But I did want to let the committee know that this is a normal practice that we implement for our committees in terms of trying to establish a work plan and looking ahead as far as goals and objectives and the things that we're hoping to achieve with the committee's support and involvement. You will notice that the work plan, of course, has a number of objectives and goals, and a lot of them do focus on our own internal infrastructure, a lot of our HR practices. And I think it was important for us from a city perspective to make sure that we have this in place as a fundamental foundation before we can actually be able to support a lot of the more external, what I would say, front-facing initiative. Having said that, we did include a number of policy review that are engaging with the public, a number of our events, special events that will be reviewed over the next year, that I think are also very critical. And we will be looking for guidance as well from the committee on those things. Your input suggestions will be critical as we go through over the next year, over the different items that are listed in the work plan. And of course, there are always, I think, things that will come up that are not part of the work plan that we will need to possibly adjust. And we do expect that, and we will be working closely with you to make that happen. I think with that in mind, I'll pass it over to Mohammed to maybe walk through more details that are included in the work plan, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lenny, for the introduction. Madam Chair, through you, I'm just going to share my screen for a quick presentation that will summarize this plan for everyone.
Perfect. Go ahead and do so. Thank you.
I'm not able to share my screen, Derek.
Mohammed, I have changed the permission, so you should be able to share your screen now. My apologies.
Now I can. Thank you. So here we are. The plan in front of everyone today is the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Office Work Plan for 2021-2022. We are focusing on 4 major goals. The goal 1 is specifically focused on culture and climate of the city of Kingston as corporation. We will be creating and create and maintain a diverse community and cooperation by increasing awareness of benefits of integrating EDI in city of Kingston. Goal 2 is focused on recruitment and retention. By building a diverse talent pipeline to attract and retain diverse and experienced team members. Goal 3 is targeted towards education and training, and the goal will be achieved by fostering a connected culture of learning and development to cultivate a supportive, welcoming, inclusive, and equitable work environment. Goal 4 is focused on policies and services. We will achieve this goal by enhancing policies, plans, practices, programs, and services to meet the diverse needs of those we serve. Now, let's dive in a little bit deeper into goal 1. Goal 1 has smaller objectives that are broken down into even more actions, which you can see in the document that was shared with you earlier. The objective 1.1 is to ensure that systemically excluded residents can be engaged in City of Kingston decision-making process. Objective 1.2 focus on establish processes to recognize EDI at council, committee meetings, and major staff meetings. 1.3 environmental scan to determine the corporation's current makeup and EDI climate in the areas of internal data and service mobilization. Objective 1.4, creating an inclusive Indigenous environment and practices for staff and stakeholders. Goal 2, on recruitment and retention, the objective 2.1 is increase representation of Indigenous, Black, persons with disability, and other systemically excluded identities. Objective 2.2 is incorporating EDI lens in onboarding of new employees. Goal 3, education and training. Objective 3.1, increase city staff and elected officials' knowledge, understanding, and competency in equity, diversity, and inclusion. 3.2, establish an EDI champion of managerial or above level in each department. 3.3, increase accessibility for learning materials. Goal 4, policies and services. Objective 4.1, review and update policies. Objective 4.2, review and amend programs, infrastructure, and services. That's all for my presentation. Thank you very much. If you have any specific question related to the work plan, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now so that we can go back.
All right.
Mohammed, can I please ask a question?
Just a second. I'm going to just know Manuela. So the process from here now is the committee can ask questions. So typically the chair will call on people as they raise their hand and then go from there just to keep it neat and orderly. So sorry, I wasn't quick enough on the button there, Manuela.
Great, no worries. Thank you for your patience with my first time chairing a meeting as well, everyone. I appreciate it. So appreciating the presentation, Mohammed. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to present? Yes, Elsa.
Yes, I have. Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly, Madam Chair. Mohammed, Mr. Asan, I have 2 questions. The one is I would like to know how you define systemically excluded. And my second question is, do we have any indication of the percentage or the demographics of systemically excluded people in the Greater Kingston area?
Thank you very much for the question. And Madam Chair, through you, we define systemically excluded as the community groups or members of the community who are not evenly represented, and an older term that has been used is underrepresented community groups. For example, gender diverse community, US LGBTQ community, people with racialized identities, person with disabilities, and other. Speaking on your second question, the systemically excluded community data for Kingston can be derived from the census data for federal government, and that would be the only source that we can use. I hope that answers your question.
To a certain extent, Madam Chair, if I just may please follow up on that. Do we have those numbers? Because as do we have those numbers from the? Have we looked at that? My question is because I would like to understand the magnitude of the problem we have here.
So not at the moment, like right now, I don't have those numbers handy, but definitely we can provide those numbers to the committee in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else, I don't know who was first, Lane or Charan?
Madam Chair, I believe Lani has some additional information she'd like to add to Mohammed's response, and then we can go to Charan after.
Perfect, thank you.
That's correct, and thank you through Madam Chair. So we can definitely obtain the information. I just want to caution the committee that the information that we will have at this point from Statistics Canada will be older. There will be obviously new data that will be coming out, I'm hoping shortly, from Statistics Canada that will provide us a more up-to-date picture of the demographics, I think, in Kingston. So I just want to caution the committee on that. The other thing too is I know that the work plan makes reference to doing a census, and that census is within the organization, so within the city corporation, and we will be able to bring that data, which will be quite up to date to the committee, most likely at our next meeting.
Thank you for that, Lanny. Does anybody, I guess I'll go to Turan first, and then if anyone has questions on Lanny's further explanation, we can go back to that. Go ahead, Turan.
My question is to Mohammed. Hi. So I just wanted to check with the way we were saying about the recruitment and to the training at the different communities. So is there any process we are trying to communicate, or what are the types of communication we are trying to do?
Thank you very much for the question, Sharon, and Madam Chair, through you. It's actually, I just want to clarify that it's not for the community. These trainings are for the staff and elected representatives of City of Kingston on the issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the topics are not limited, but some of the topics would be around unconscious bias, gender diversity, and many other topics as we will move forward on that. I hope that helps clarifying the intent of that area.
Thank you, Turan, and thank you, Mohammed. Councillor Neal, you have a question, you may go ahead. Thank you.
Just very quickly, and this is probably through the clerk and Lanny. I mentioned this in regards to another committee that I sit on, but we used to routinely, every year, after we went through the nominations process, we would have a meeting for new members of committees and for chairs and vice chairs of committees. And I think that was really, really helpful. I know I mentioned it to our clerk one other time. I don't think we've had anything like that, to my knowledge, in the last, well, in post-COVID anyway. And I think having a Zoom meeting and inviting those people after our December nominations meeting would be really, really helpful for all new members of committees. So.
I see that, Derek, you have your hand up as well.
If you will, Manuel, I can just provide some context to Councillor Neal. Correct, we have not been able to have the large meetings due to COVID, but staff have been meeting with committee members and chairs and vice chairs individually to give them an orientation. But we will be bringing that back once we can do those larger gatherings and public health requirements allow that.
Yeah, we can do those larger gatherings through Zoom as well. And I think that would be very, very helpful for the committees. So, and I see Lanny reaching for her pen. So it's about to be so, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Neal. Does anybody else have any further questions on the topic? Go ahead, Derek.
I believe I saw, I don't know if Hal was raising his hand just slightly off camera there. I saw some motion, so I don't want to make sure he's not missed.
On the topic, you mean the work plan, correct? I had my hand up and then brought it down because you said on the topic. So I assume that's the general topic of the work plan itself?
I will let you jump in, Derek. I'm not
Yep,
sure
so,
if.
yeah, the discussion right now is regarding the
Okay.
report and the work plan.
I got a number of questions, but I preface them by begging your indulgence for my newness to political and city processes and so forth, and committee process. And I also beg your indulgence with, I'm the old guy in the block here, so grant me some slack there. I had a couple of specific questions. And in 4.1, it talks about review City Hall illumination policy. I'm just a curiosity question. What is that?
Lanny, I see you have your hand, I guess. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through Madam Chair. So we currently have a policy actually to guide when the city will proceed with illumination of its city hall. So we do have lighting that has been installed on City Hall, and we can use different colors to identify basically or highlight different days or events or cultural celebration, those types of things. The policy that we have was written a number of years ago. And I think it's missing in terms of some of the celebrations that we should be recognizing or days that we should be really highlighting in the community. So we want to review that, and we will be obviously bringing this back to the committee to make sure we haven't missed anything from your perspective, because we want to make sure that it is as inclusive as possible.
Thank you. When I first read this document, I may be way off base here, but part of me was also saying there's the action plan and then how this committee fits into the action plan. And there's a column there, EDI committee involvement. And in many cases, we're not actually involved. And then there's a number where we say consult and provide input. Funnily enough, I kept thinking perhaps we need a work plan for the committee in that column. like I'm not sure. Like for example, review city partners, special events, content with the EDL lens. This will include a city-led multicultural event. And then the committee's asked to consult and provide input. So what I'm struggling with, will there be like almost like a work plan, how that happens, how we do that input and consultation? I'm just sort of throw that out there.
Thanks, Hal. I believe Lanny has an answer for you. Go ahead, Lanny.
Thank you, and through Madam Chair. So that is a very good question, and you're correct. There are some items that are noted to be internal and for information only. Those tend to be more, I'm going to say, some of the human resources topics that really may have some sensitivity to it. Now, we will report information to the committee, but it may be difficult for you to be more involved if we're dealing with unionized or collective agreement, those types of things, which is why we've identified as for information only. Those where we have consult and provide input, the way that this would typically happen is we would bring information to the committee in the form of a report. So everything that we bring to the committee will be in a form of a formal report that you will receive. Information will be included. There may be some options, some recommendations, and you as a committee will be asked to give us your thoughts and ultimately support or not support some of the options that are provided to you. So if we come back with revisions, for example, on the policy that I talked about earlier, we may say, here's a list of different days that we think the city should be recognizing, and how this is how we think they could be recognized. And you may say, well, that's great, but we think that you've missed A, B, C, and D. So you should add that. So we want to make sure that you are engaged. You can help us and provide us with guidance, but of course we will come to you with information. We're not expecting you to find all of that on your own. We will come prepared with full reports for you.
Thank you. So simply put, you'll feed us where we're going to give the input. You'll by reports. Like we react to what you give us, kind of thing.
So through you, Madam Chair, generally, yes, but on the agenda, there is also a section for other business where members can bring other topics as well. And members of the committee could also ask staff to look into something specific if they're interested in it and give us that direction. And then we would obviously go away and do that. But as a starting point, we wanted to make sure that the committee had some kind of plan to know that what we actually can be working on over the next, I'm going to say a little bit over a year time frame.
Thank you so much, Lanny, and thank you so much, Hal. I see that V. Ophelia has a hand up, so I will let you go ahead.
I just have a comment on the report here on the objective 2.1 about increasing representation. I'm just wondering if it would be beneficial to actually, instead of just saying other systemically excluded identities, maybe actually adding the actual identities. Like I know it could be a long, exhausting list, but I think there's some that's like LGBTQ plus communities. You know, I just think it's important because sometimes it gets just lost as other. If we could add a little bit, be more specific, I think would be a little bit beneficial.
Thank you so much. And would I say Ophelia or V. Ophelia, just in terms of making reference?
The V is for Vanessa, so it's a good thing I'm not using Vanessa today because there's like 3 of us here today. So Ophelia is just fine.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ophelia. Wondering if anyone on City Council wanted to make comment on that, or if there are any further questions on the topic. Councillor Neal, I think I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
I think that was my cue. I agree with what Ophelia said. In fact, she stole one of the suggestions I was going to make. And so I really appreciate that. I think when you just say systemically disadvantaged, I mean, that can be the catch-all phrase at the end, but you should be inclusive of those groups that are normally identified as that. So I think that would be helpful. So, and I did want, Lanny wanted to address that, I believe, so.
Thank you, and through Madam Chair, thank you, Ophelia and Councillor Neal for your comments. So we can expand on that and make that amendment before, so for council consideration. So if the committee does support this work plan, what will happen is it will go to City Council next to be endorsed. So we can make that amendment and bring that for council's consideration as well.
Great, thank you so much, Lanny. And River, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I just have a question, and maybe we'll elaborate into this more later, but if we wanted to be more involved in some of these actionable items in the list, would there be an opportunity for that, or is it mostly within the city?
Thank you, River. Go ahead, Lanny.
Thank you, and through Madam Chair. So I think to answer your question is, as long as it's within the scope of the committee's mandate. So that doesn't preclude you, though, to be involved as a volunteer for other. So I'm going to use a special events one because I think it's a good example where, as a committee member, you may be involved in helping us define and design what, you know, a multicultural festival might look like. But you may also be a volunteer as part of this multicultural festival as well. So you could have definitely different roles there that you could play as a member of the community. But there are some that may, depending on the scope of the committee mandate, I think that's what we would want to work within, but happy to work with you as well if there are things that you want to be more engaged on offline to see how we can make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, River, and thank you, Lanny. I saw Sunita's hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick questions that I wanted to make. So I'm hearing Multicultural Festival. So is this what KIP previously used to organize? Because at some point, I believe that handover happened without community engagement. And I really want us to be mindful of that handover happened by the ED of one organization, I believe, in a conversation with the mayor. But that event was the community's event. It wasn't one organization's to give away without community engagement. And I believe there's people here such as Charan and Zerman who can sort of speak to that. That's one. Maybe we can go back and forth on a couple of things then. Sure. Thanks, Lenny.
Thank you, Sunita. And Lanny, go ahead.
Thank you, and through Madam Chair. So it's correct that it is the event that Kingston Community Health Centers, through KIP, decided not to organize anymore. So I want to make sure it's clear that it wasn't passed over. But what was discussed was the fact that the organization did not have the capacity, and I can't speak for every individual in the organization, but I can only provide the information that was given to the city, is that the organization did not have the capacity to organize this event anymore. And there was a request for the city to take a leadership role. So having said that, our intent is not to have this become a city-led only event. We very much we need actually the community to be involved in this event. And this is why also we're going to be bringing some information to the committee, but we will be reaching out to the community, obviously, to get them engaged in designing this event. We recognize that we may want to do certain things differently, so the community may want to do certain things differently. I'm not saying that things weren't well organized, but maybe there are new things that the community will come up with and will want to incorporate in the event. And I think that's what we want to make sure we're open to.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry. Go ahead, Sunita, sorry. Zerman, I see that you also have a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just more of a comment for what we were talking about. The Multicultural Arts Festival, obviously, I've been a part of it since its inception. And as with Sunita, and there might be some others on the call here that have been engaged at varying levels over the years, but being there since day one, and that was a rejuvenation on the heels of the conclusion of folklore from some years further back. So, I mean, I was involved in folklore from the 80s. As a little kid dancing up on stage, fun times. But anyway, if anyone remembers folklore, it was tremendous. Maybe this event can turn into a 2-3 day event again, or whatever the case may be. But just further to Sunita's point, yeah, there was a heavy amount of community engagement and involvement on the Multicultural Arts Festival. I was also the resident MC for the festival for the whole time that it was running. And the varying community groups that really had a sense of ownership on that festival. I myself personally still receive a lot of communication from a lot of the volunteers and individuals from varying community groups wondering, what are we doing, right? Because obviously COVID presents a lot of challenges there, and when are we getting the festival up and running again? So it's good to hear now, Lenny, that you clarified that it's with some direction and leadership at the city, but just a cautionary point further to what Sunita was saying, a lot of those community members will be hoping to re-engage and hear from the city, just so they know that they are still fully available to be involved and engaged and to impression upon this festival as to how it might now look as we move forward. And for those of us that have worked on the festival for a very long time, we're all available, ready, happy to do as you need or wherever we can assist you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sermon. Go ahead, Lanny.
Thank you, and through you. So I really appreciate those comments. I'll definitely touch base with you and yourself and Sunita offline to actually connect the members of the community to our events logistics organizer. And from a city perspective, what we want to be able to do is support what the community would like to see. And we do have a lot of resources that we can make available to do exactly just that. So that's the intent here, to make this event an event that the community really wants.
Thank you, Lanny. And Councillor Neal, go ahead.
Yes, earlier I gave Derek, the clerk, a heads up that if he could show on the screen, I just wanted to ask some questions around the kind of summary first couple of statements in the work plan that we received. Thank you. Yeah, my question probably is to Lanny. I'm just wondering how that second paragraph, it says it is also being recommended that staff have the authority to amend the work plan as required and to accelerate implementation of certain initiatives that may be unforeseen and in response to community needs. My question regarding that, because I'm quite used to the work plans coming, often suggested by staff, coming to committees and the committee endorsing those. And but this is the first time I'm aware of a committee where the protocol seems to be the committee handing over the protocol for acceptance to staff. And I have to say, in 18 years as a counselor, I've never seen a work plan where staff can tweak it without the support of the committee that it's describing. Perhaps Lanny can speak to that.
Thank you, and through Councillor Neal, through Madam Chair to Councillor Neal. So the maybe this wasn't properly worded, but I'll give you an example of a situation that we had this past year, where we had to react quite quickly to a situation, which was the situation with our Indigenous community. And we had to move quickly with a number of responses in terms of trying to work with the Indigenous community, lowering the flag, elimination of City Hall, all things that, to be frank, were not within the context of our policy. And the shoes at City Hall that we had as well. All of those things we moved. We felt we had to move quickly, and we didn't want to take weeks to respond to this. We were trying to work closely with the Indigenous community. So those would be situations, Councillor Neal, where I would see maybe we wouldn't have time to go back to the committee and get something through the committee and then through council, where we would need some flexibility to be able to respond, and working with the community, of course, different groups from the community. But I just want to give that one as an example. And maybe my wording wasn't appropriate. Maybe I should have worded it differently, but that's really what I was trying to get at, those types of situations.
And those were initiatives that I totally supported. But we now have a committee, and at the very least, because at the call of the chair, we can always have a quick single item agenda item meeting, thanks to Zoom, whereby we're able to endorse any of those kinds of decisions. But at the very least, I think communicating them to members of the committee would be very, very helpful. And I know through the COVID period, we've given certain extraordinary powers to the mayor and CAO, although the CAO has, I believe, stepped back and it's the mayor now. But those are very specific and have to be COVID related, as I understand it. And I see Lanny nodding, so I think I'm right. So communicating with the committee and then bringing it to be endorsed at our next meeting would be a good protocol, I would think.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. I see Lanny, you have your hand, and then I'll turn to River afterward. Thank you.
Thank you, and through Madam Chair. So Councillor Neal, I'm completely fine to change that, understanding that the committee could be available in short notice to have a meeting. So I'm fine to remove that, so that if we have any situations that are similar to the one that I talked about, we can call a meeting within 24 hours and be able to run something by the committee. So I'm fine to change that at this point. And you are correct, the CAO only had extraordinary powers for a couple of months.
I don't blame you for stepping back. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, Councillor Neal and Lanny. River, go ahead.
I just had a really quick, like 2 quick points. One of my kind of like confusions or questions, just because I'm still a little bit new when it comes to these like very formalized committees, is that I remember during that period that there were emergency meetings called with some different types of councils. Would that be appropriate for us to also follow that kind of thing with an emergency meeting? My second question, when it comes to like getting feedback from us in a quick fashion, would be, could we have like smaller meetings when the time arises, or could we have some sort of feedback method or platform that we could kind of like vote on or give feedback on and then generate that into a presentation or something? Lots of options.
Thank you, River. Go ahead, Lanny.
Thank you, and through Madam Chair. So yes, emergency meetings can be called for the committee. And as long as we have quorum, so it does not require every single member to be available, but as long as we have quorum, so that may get to your question about a smaller group, River. So as long as we have quorum, then the committee can meet and provide direction. If there is no quorum, we could still have a conversation with committee members, but no decisions obviously can be made at that point. But that doesn't mean there cannot be a dialogue. So to Councillor Neal's suggestion about having the chair call a meeting, we can definitely do that. On the question of voting or providing input electronically, I don't think, and I'm looking to our clerk that's on the call, but I don't think we have the ability to do that at this point, which I know would be extremely helpful at times.
That's a process to set up, I understand.
And Manuela, I can confirm that Lanny is correct in that voting does have to happen as part of a meeting, because voting is considered moving a decision, and that's as part of the city's openness and transparency and commitment to democracy. So, but there are other methods provided that, again, the general rule is no committee business can be advanced without it being an open public meeting, such as over Zoom.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Derek.
That's really good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, River. And I also see that we're approaching the 2 p.m. mark. Just turning to Derek as well to see if, I guess, yeah, if we should ask if there are any more questions or if we should follow the next steps.
And while we can continue the conversation, there's not necessarily a time limit on meetings, understanding that individual members may have time limits, and if they do need to leave, that is fine, provided we have at least 6 members, then we can carry on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Derek. Does anybody else have any further questions that they'd like to add to the conversation? Oh, Sunita, go ahead.
Thank you, Manuela. So the other point I wanted to make was, I think it's around 4.2 in the work plan. Again, having been part of the CURT underrepresented subcommittee, for everyone's benefit, that's the Kingston Economic Recovery Team struck by the mayor, and they have a bunch of subcommittees, and I'm with this underrepresented group subcommittee. I see there's a tendency a lot of times, even when we're talking about social procurement and all, like where the Office of I think it's strategic partnerships, correct me if I'm wrong, the tendency to work with sort of only a select few organizational partners. And how do we ensure that we do not appear exclusive in an attempt to be inclusive? And I'm not sure if everyone sort of has that historical background, and perhaps that clarification from Mohammed or Lani would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Go ahead, Lani.
Thank you, and through you, Mohammed may want to add to this as well. He's welcome to do so. But where we have city policies that are proposed to be reviewed, we do have to do a broader consultation and engagement with the public. So we, obviously this committee would be part of it, but we would need to also reach out to different organizations. And I'm sure that the committee would ask us when the policy is brought back, who have you attempted to engage with? So we recognize that the engagement of various organizations in the community will be important. We may also reach out to you as members of the community, because sometimes it may be difficult for us to have access to the right contacts. So we may reach out to you for some support there in terms of information and how best to engage some organizations within the community. So we will definitely, I'm sure, turn to your expertise and knowledge for that. Mohammed, did you want to add anything?
No, that covers what I was about to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I do want to flag that I do have to go at 2, so I'll maybe turn to Derek to see in terms of the formality of the meeting if I should pass the chair torch to Councillor Neal, or what steps should be taken.
So the process would be, if you have to leave, Manuela is the vice chair, so that would be River. They would take over as chair. So I know you said you have to leave at 2, so we can see if we can advance any more of it, and then when you need to, just let me know and we can transfer things over. There's nothing official that needs to happen. We'll just make sure that River is prepared.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Derek. And given that, does anybody else have further questions for today? Vanessa.
I'm sorry, this might be a little bit off topic. I am not very well familiar with any of the people in this committee at this time. I know we haven't had the opportunity to officially meet or connect in any way. I was just thinking, and this might be something that's worth looking into off recording or maybe after this more official meeting, but to maybe connect all of us through some type of app, or I was just thinking along the lines of a WhatsApp group or an email chain or something, just to maybe informally meet and discuss what issues and what topics we are more well versed in and where we can all connect at different levels. I just think it would be helpful for myself, having come into this committee not really knowing anyone, and I think we're all here for the same reason. So it might be another topic to address, but something that might just make this committee work a little bit more as a team.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. I'll turn it to Derek now.
That's a great, a great idea, Vanessa, but I do want to caution that technically, if the committee meets in quorum and is discussing committee business and in theory is advancing it, that may be considered an illegal meeting under the Municipal Act. So what would need to happen is, it's fine if people want to meet in smaller groups to maybe get to know each other better offline, but any type of unofficial meeting channel or chats could be construed as advancing business without having a public meeting, which I know seems maybe stark and draconian, but those are the rules that the committee has to follow by. So, but taking that in a positive light, Vanessa, I think there are some opportunities, perhaps working with Mohammed and Vanessa from the EDI office to get the committee to know each other better in ways that are within the Municipal Act. So I can work with Mohammed and Vanessa on that.
Thank you, Derek. Go ahead, River.
I know that this isn't typically something that I've seen city committees do, but I think maybe as a suggestion, it might be good to delegate a little bit of time in our agenda just to do really quick introductions with names and pronouns, and maybe even if people want to share just a quick area of expertise that might kind of give both us and any audience we have a little bit of a grounding of who we are and what we do and what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you, River. I see, Derek, I'm not sure if your hand was up from previous, but I do see Councillor Neal, you also are putting your hand up.
Sorry, I just hadn't had a chance to lower it.
No problem. Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Just quickly, often with new committees, and even anytime a committee goes through a kind of renewal after nominations, we do a roundtable introduction, and we could either do that now or make sure that it's done at our next meeting. And that's a good opportunity to get to know one another. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. And does anybody else have any further questions? All right, so Derek, I think the next step would be to go through any motions that there are, but I don't believe we have any today.
And well, the next step would be actually, I believe Lanny may have something she wishes to add, but I'll quickly say the next step would be, once questions are done, would be technically public comments, but there are no members of the public attending. So it would be getting a mover and a seconder on the recommendation in the report and then a vote. But we may want to see if Lanny has something she wishes to add.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I was just going to add, if someone from the committee was interested in moving an amendment to the recommendation to remove the second part, or maybe vote it down, I'm not sure, but it is the part of the recommendation that Councillor Neal made reference to in terms of amending the work plan as required, and I indicated that we could remove that. So I think the cleanest way to do that would probably have to have the committee move an amendment and vote on that.
That's correct. Thank you for bringing that up, Lanny. So Manuela, the process for this would be that we would get a mover and a seconder. So I'll say the Councillor Neal, I believe, is willing to move this. Councillor Neal? You're just on mute at the moment.
Yes, I would move amendment by deletion of the second paragraph.
Yes, so excellent. So to confirm, that's deletion of the second paragraph in the recommendation, which is that the EDI office amend the work plan as required and report back to the EDI advisory committee. So Manuela, you have Councillor Neal moving. You would also ask for a seconder here.
Perfect. And I see a few hands up for seconders. Thank you, Vanessa, Elsaby, and Zerman.
All right, and now a vote.
Now a vote. All in favor? Perfect.
Excellent. So now that the amendment has passed, Manuela, it would be getting a mover and a seconder on the motion as amended.
Okay, perfect. River, I'll turn it to you if you are able to do so. Thank you everyone for your time today, and we'll see all of you folks at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Manuela?
for passing to me, Manuela.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. So where are we at?
River, we would just need a mover and a seconder on the motion or the recommendation as amended. And then once we have those, call the vote.
Okay, so do we have a mover for this recommendation? Zerman? Okay. Do we have a seconder? Sunita? Okay. And do we do a show of hands?
All in favor? Show hands.
All in favor?
And that passes, River.
Awesome. All right. So our next item is, Sorry, I have a million tabs open.
Like River, I can help guide you through at this point, if that would be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No worries, it's my job. So next up is motions, and there are none on the agenda.
Okay.
Then it would be notices of motion. And again, there are none currently on the agenda. The next section is other business. Now I'll let everybody know here, this is an opportunity if there's a brief announcement that you feel is worth the committee knowing about, such as an event or something that's upcoming, this is where to make that. It's not the place to necessarily introduce new business where there's a large discussion. So River, this would be an opportunity if people have a brief announcement they'd like to make at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So any show of hands if there are any announcements or up and coming?
Not seeing
right.
any.
Doesn't look like anything, so we'll move to the next item.
No,
Sharon.
Sharon's hand went up and then down, so I think we're okay. Still up.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Hi. So the announcements of maybe you're asking about the community or anything in community what we can announce?
Yes.
Okay. So like ICA Kingston, like India Canada Association of Kingston is having an Diwali event this month on the end of November. So we are still looking at the dates of 27th and 28th. So that will be a small announcement, which I wanted to make sure that, because we had it booked for 13th, but due to the COVID restrictions, I think we are just waiting for the announcement of 15th. So we have tentatively booked for 27th and 28th of this month.
Thank you for sharing.
And that is a perfect example of what should go under other business. So thank you, Charan. I think River, I believe Councillor Neal has something as well.
Yeah, Councillor Neal.
For future reference, I know that there's a specific First Nations Remembrance Day, and I believe it may be tomorrow. So of course, far too short notice for us to do anything now, but perhaps we could start a calendar of events so that we don't miss out on any events in future.
Thank you. Mohammed?
River, through you, Councillor Neal, it's in our work plan to have a calendar. So if we can refer to the work plan, it's there, and we will be working with this committee to finalize that calendar. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements at all? Oh, Ophelia?
Just only because of it's Indigenous Veterans Day is actually today. It's November the 8th. So as Councillor Neal says, having a calendar I think will be helpful to moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, River, we're almost through the agenda. The next item is correspondence. So this is just an FYI to the committee. You received the letter from Catherine Porter in your agenda. So that's just, it's placing it on there as required. Then the next item is date and time of the next meeting. Now, River, would you allow me just a quick minute to let the committee know what will be happening with this?
Before we do that, is there anything that we're doing specifically to speak about the Heart Center? Are there any presentations, or is it just like reading that's required?
It's not necessarily what I'd call required reading or any action required. What will happen is often people will send information to the committee, and this is just the way we transmit it. So it's more of information for the committee's benefit, but no action required at this time.
Okay.
With regards to future meeting schedule, I will be reaching out to everybody individually as we work together to set up a meeting schedule for 2022. So we'll try and find everybody's preference for time and work as best as we can from there. I figured it would be better to do that separately than in a meeting like this when people might not have access to calendars and things like that.
Thank you. I'd like to pass it to Councillor Neal.
Yes. Do you anticipate, I'm sure this is in the terms of reference, which I did a speed reading of 2 days ago, but do you expect these meetings to be bi-monthly, like every other month, or is it a monthly schedule of meetings?
Your question, Councillor Neal, the mandate states that the committee will meet bi-monthly, which means every second month.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And the only other thing, if I can ask Lanny to hang in here after everybody else goes, I just have a 10-second question for you. Thank you.
If I could actually ask a question, is this, if things really ramp up, I know that things are very organized, but if things do ramp up, is the meeting frequency subject to change? Is that something we could vote on?
Oh, I believe, as Councillor Neal mentioned earlier, the committee does have the ability to meet ad hoc at the call of the chair. So if something came up that required a meeting, it would just be a matter of myself working with the chair and staff to schedule the meeting. So that is entirely possible, River.
Perfect, thank you.
And then the last item for you, River, is adjournment. So this is just, we technically have to vote a mover, a seconder, and then vote to end the meeting officially. So that's all we need to do, and then we are done for the day.
All right, so now that we're finished, almost finished with this meeting, are there any other last minute items that anyone would like to bring up? No? Okay. Can I have a mover for the adjournment of the meeting? I'm going to take Hal, and a seconder, Vanessa. All right. Do we do all in favor?
There's a vote.
Show of hands. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Excellent. And thank you for volunteering to Vice Chair / Chair River.
Absolutely. It was fun.
Hi, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.